The Great Hall was bigger than any building on Earth. Kim Woo-jin walked slowly across the smooth floor, his black shoes making soft sounds that echoed up to the high ceiling. Above him, lights from 1,000 different worlds cast strange colors on the walls. He had been here many times before, but today felt different. Woo-jin was 43 years old and had spent the last 3 years as Earth's only voice in the Galactic Council. The other beings called him the Peace Weaver, because he always found ways to solve problems without fighting. When the Crystal people of Althar fought with the gas clouds of Nebula 7, Woo-jin helped them make peace. When trade wars broke out between the machine worlds and the plant kingdoms, he found solutions that made everyone happy. But today there would be no peace talks. The council chamber held representatives from over 200 different worlds. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Woo-jin still felt surprised when he saw them. There were beings made of living rock, creatures that floated like jellyfish and others that looked like walking trees. They all had one thing in common now: they were afraid. "The outer rim is gone," announced Councillor Veltar. The Althari was 8 feet tall and made of what looked like blue crystal. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. 7 star systems have been completely consumed. Nothing remains. No planets, no moons, not even space dust. A wave of nervous sounds filled the chamber. Some beings clicked, others hummed, and a few made sounds that hurt Woo-jin's ears. Fear had its own language that everyone understood. "How many ships did we lose in the last attack?" asked Commander Zeph of the Nebulan fleet. His body was like purple smoke held together by some invisible force. "All of them," Veltar replied. "The Void Swarm took everything. The ships, the crews, even the metal and energy. They consume everything they touch and become stronger." Woo-jin had been studying reports about the Void Swarm for weeks. They had appeared at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago, moving from system to system like a disease. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody knew what they wanted. They just ate everything: planets, ships, people, even the light from stars. "We must try to communicate with them," said High Speaker Naren of the Collectorate. Her people were like ants, but the size of humans, and they shared one mind across their entire species. "Every intelligent life form can be reasoned with. How do you reason with something that turns your messengers into fuel?" Commander Zeph's purple form rippled with anger. "We sent 12 diplomatic ships. They were all consumed within minutes." "Then we send more ships," insisted Elder Korth of the Draconic clans. The large reptile slammed his clawed hand on the table. "We fight with honor. We show them our strength." "Your strength?" Veltar's crystal body flashed with cold light. "The Draconics sent 50 warships to defend the Kepler system. The swarm ate them all and used the metal to build more of themselves. Your strength only made them stronger." The argument that followed was the same one they had been having for months. The military commanders wanted to fight, but every battle made the enemy stronger. The diplomats wanted to talk, but the swarm did not seem to understand communication. The scientists wanted more time to study, but time was running out fast. Woo-jin watched it all in silence. He had learned that sometimes the best thing a diplomat could do was listen. But as he listened, he thought about things the others did not know, things about Earth that humans had not shared with the galaxy. "What of the humans?" asked Councillor Veltar suddenly. "You have been quiet, Ambassador Kim. Surely Earth has some wisdom to offer." All eyes turned to Woo-jin. 200 different types of beings looked at him with hope, fear, and some with barely hidden contempt. Many still thought of humans as the new children of the galaxy. Earth had only joined the Council 10 years ago, and most races had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Woo-jin stood up slowly. He was not tall compared to many beings in the room, but something about the way he moved made everyone pay attention. For 3 years when he stood like this, peace followed. Solutions appeared, problems got solved. "I have listened to your debates," he said in his calm, quiet voice. "You speak of honor and communication. You talk about studying the enemy and finding peaceful solutions. These are all good things. These are the things that make civilization possible." He paused and looked around the room. Every being was listening, carefully. But there are times when civilization itself is threatened, times when all the good things we believe in will be destroyed if we do not act. The Void Swarm does not want to talk. It does not understand honor. It cannot be studied because it changes every time it feeds. Commander Zeph's purple form shifted, nervously. Then what do you suggest, human? Wu Jin had been preparing for this moment for months. On Earth, in secret meetings, plans had been made. Weapons had been built. Strategies had been developed. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful because that was what humans had chosen to show them. I suggest, Wu Jin said, his voice still calm but somehow different now, that we stop pretending. This enemy can be defeated by the old ways. The Void Swarm has consumed 7 star systems while we debate. It grows stronger with each world it eats. Soon it will be too powerful for any force to stop. So what would you have us do? Elder Korth demanded. Or give up, run away? Wu Jin looked at the large reptile for a long moment. When he spoke, his words would be remembered for 1,000 years. Honored counselors, I have spent 3 years seeking peace. I have helped you solve your conflicts with words and compromise. I have shown you that problems can be solved without violence. And I still believe in peace. I believe in it so much that I am willing to fight for it. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the station's machines seemed to have stopped. There comes a time, Wu Jin continued, when the greatest kindness is the sword that ends suffering. When the most peaceful action is the one that stops all future violence. The Void Swarm will not stop. It will consume everything in this galaxy unless we stop it first. He paused again, and when he spoke, every word was clear and final. The time for war has come. The explosion of noise that followed was like nothing the council chamber had ever heard. Beings shouted, roared, clicked, and hummed all at once. Some demanded to know what humans could possibly do that their ancient civilizations could not. Others accused Wu Jin of abandoning his peaceful principles. A few asked if humanity had been planning for war all along. But Wu Jin just stood there, calm and still, waiting for the noise to die down. He had delivered his message. Now the real work would begin. The council chamber erupted in chaos after Wu Jin's words. Beings shouted in dozens of languages, their voices mixing into a storm of confusion and anger. Counselor Veltar's crystal body flashed bright blue as he tried to restore order. Silence, the Althari called out, his voice ringing like bells. Let the human explain himself. But before Wu Jin could speak, the air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. A hologram appeared, showing the face of a woman in a dark blue uniform. She looked to be in her 50s with short black hair and calm, intelligent eyes. Counselors, the woman said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. I am Admiral Park Dahai of the Earth Defense Force. Ambassador Kim has asked me to address you directly. Elder Korth of the Draconics leaned forward. His yellow eyes narrowed. Earth Defense Force, we were told humans had only merchant ships and exploration vessels. Admiral Park's expression did not change. We told you what you needed to know for peaceful relations. We did not tell you what you did not need to know. What does that mean? Demanded Commander Zeph, his purple gas form rippling with agitation. It means, Admiral Park replied, that while humanity spoke of peace in this chamber, we were preparing for the possibility of war. We have been watching the galaxy for 10 years. We have been learning, and we have been building. Another hologram appeared beside the Admiral. This one showed a tall man in a green military uniform with many medals on his chest. His face was serious but not unkind. I am General Lee Tae-ho, the man said. For the past 18 months, Earth has been converting our industrial capacity to military production. We have been studying the Void Swarm's behavior. We know how they fight, how they feed, and how they can be stopped. High Speaker Naran of the Collectorate made a clicking sound of disbelief. Impossible. Our greatest scientists have studied the swarm for months and learned almost nothing. Your scientists, said a third hologram that had just appeared, have been thinking like civilized beings trying to understand other civilized beings. We have been thinking like predators trying to understand prey. The new hologram showed a woman in a white lab coat. She looked young, maybe 30 years old, with glasses and tired eyes. I am Dr. Han So-young, the woman continued. The Void Swarm is not like any life form in our galaxy. It does not want territory or resources in the way we understand them. It wants to consume organized matter and energy, breaking it down and rebuilding it into more of itself. We know this already, Veltar said impatiently. But do you know why? Dr. Han asked. The swarm comes from outside our galaxy. It evolved in empty space between galaxies where matter is rare and energy is precious. To survive in that environment, it learned to consume everything it found and waste nothing. She paused, and images began appearing around her hologram. Pictures of swarm ships, battle footage, scientific charts. Every time you fight the swarm in direct combat, you teach it how to fight better. Every weapon you use, it learns to copy. Every strategy you try, it adapts to counter. This is why all your battles have failed. Elder Korth's claws scraped against his chair. Then how do you propose to defeat an enemy that learns from every encounter? General Lee stepped forward in his hologram. By not teaching it what we are doing. By fighting in ways it cannot understand or adapt to. What ways? Commander, Zeph asked. Ways that civilized species do not usually consider. Admiral Park answered. Your people fight with honor. You announce your attacks. You engage in fair combat. You try to minimize casualties among your own forces. Of course, said High Speaker. Norin, these are the foundations of civilized warfare. And they are why you lose, General Lee said bluntly. The swarm does not care about honor. It does not understand fair combat. It only understands consumption and growth. Wu Jin finally spoke again. What my colleagues are trying to explain is that humanity approaches war differently than the rest of the galaxy. We do not fight to prove our courage or to die gloriously. We fight to win, completely and permanently. But how? Veltar demanded. What can humans do that we cannot? Admiral Park's hologram gestured, and new images appeared. Ships unlike anything the Council had seen before. Weapons that looked strange and dangerous. Battle plans that seemed to make no sense. We target their ability to process consumed matter, Admiral Park explained. Instead of trying to destroy their ships in battle, we poison their food supply. Instead of fighting their forces directly, we make them fight themselves. Dr. Han's hologram showed charts and diagrams. The swarm's greatest strength is its ability to learn and adapt. But this is also its weakness. If we can introduce the right kind of information into their network, we can cause their adaptation process to work against them. You want to use biological warfare? High Speaker Naran sounded horrified. Not biological, Dr. Han corrected. Informational. We plant false data in the matter they consume. When they try to adapt to threats that do not exist, they waste energy and resources fighting problems we created. General Lee added, we also use what we call asymmetric tactics. We do not meet their strength with strength. We attack where they are weak and avoid where they are strong. This sounds like cowardice, Elder Korth growled. Does it? Wu Jin asked quietly. Is it cowardly to ensure victory? Is it cowardly to end a war quickly rather than let it drag on for years? Is it cowardly to save lives by using superior strategy instead of superior firepower? The chamber fell silent as the beings considered his words. Admiral Park continued. Human military doctrine is based on a simple principle. The enemy's will to fight must be completely broken. Not just defeated in one battle, but made unable and unwilling to continue fighting. How do you break the will of something like the Void Swarm? Commander Zeph asked. By making their primary survival strategy into their destruction, Dr. Han answered. They consume everything they encounter, so we make sure that what they consume destroys them from within. General Lee's expression was grim. This will not be a clean war. It will not be honorable by your standards. We will have to sacrifice ships, systems, even entire worlds to achieve victory. Sacrifice worlds? Veltar's crystal body went dark with shock. Some worlds are already lost, Wu Jin said sadly. The choice is not between saving them and sacrificing them. The choice is between losing some worlds now or losing all worlds later. Admiral Park nodded. Every world the swarm has consumed becomes part of their resource base. But if we contaminate those worlds before they consume them, we turn their own food into poison. The cost will be terrible, General Lee admitted, but the cost of losing will be infinite. If the swarm cannot be stopped, they will eventually consume the entire galaxy. High Speaker Naran made a sound like grinding gears. You are asking us to abandon everything we believe about civilized warfare. No, Wu Jin said. We are asking you to remember why civilization exists in the first place. We create laws and customs and honor codes because they make life better for everyone. But when something threatens to destroy all of that, we must be willing to use whatever methods are necessary to preserve it. He looked around the chamber, at all the different species. Humans understand something that you are still learning. Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is what happens when those who would destroy civilization know the cost of trying. Dr. Han's hologram showed one final image, a star map with human fleet positions marked in red dots scattered across the galaxy. We have been preparing. For 18 months, she said. Our fleets are already in position, our weapons are ready, our strategies have been tested, but we cannot do this alone. Admiral Park stepped forward. We need the Council's support. Not just your fleets, but your willingness to fight the way humans fight. To win at any cost, instead of fighting with honor and losing everything. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Councillor Veltar spoke. You are asking us to become like you. To think like predators instead of civilized beings. We are asking you to survive, Wu Jin replied. Everything else can be rebuilt. Later, Captain Cho Min-soo watched the tactical display on his ship's bridge. The Kepler 442 system spread out before him in glowing dots and lines. 3 planets orbited a yellow star, and one of those planets was being consumed by the void swarm. Status report, he said quietly. Swarm processing facility is online, reported Lieutenant Nam from the sensor station. They are breaking down the planet's crust and converting it into new ship hulls. Cho had been a naval officer for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The swarm ships looked like giant metal spiders, each one the size of a city. They were pulling pieces of the planet apart and feeding them into massive factories that floated in orbit. How long? Until the planet is gone, he asked. At current rate, 6 hours, Lieutenant Nam replied. 6 hours. An entire world with billions of years of history would be turned into enemy ships in 6 hours. Cho thought about the reports from other systems. This was happening everywhere the swarm went. Contact from Admiral Park, reported the communications officer. The main screen showed Admiral Park Dahai in her command center back on Earth. Behind her, Cho could see dozens of officers working at control stations. Captain Cho, the Admiral said, you are authorized to begin Operation Silent Hunter. Understood, Admiral, Cho replied. What are our rules of engagement? There are no rules, Admiral Park said. Only objectives. Destroy the processing facility. Do not engage the swarm ships directly unless absolutely necessary. Get out alive. The screen went dark. Around the bridge, Cho's crew looked at him with nervous faces. They all knew this mission was different from anything the galactic military had tried before. Take us in, Cho ordered. Silent running. Full. Stealth mode. The human fleet had been built with lessons learned from Earth's oceans. Like submarines hunting enemy ships, they could move without being detected. The other galactic races built ships that announced their presence. Bright lights, energy signatures that could be seen from across a system. They fought with pride and honor. Humans fought to win. Swarm ships are not detecting us, Lieutenant Nam reported. We are invisible to their sensors. Cho nodded. The stealth technology had been developed by studying how sharks moved through water. No wasted energy, no unnecessary noise. Just smooth, deadly efficiency. 20 human ships moved toward the processing facility like ghosts. They did not look like the warships other races built. No bright colors or impressive decorations. Just dark, angular shapes designed for killing. Target acquired, reported the weapons officer. Processing facility is vulnerable. Do not target the facility itself, Cho ordered. Target the matter intake systems. We want to poison their food, not destroy their kitchen. This was the part that made other races uncomfortable. Instead of destroying the enemy directly, humans preferred to make the enemy destroy themselves. It was more efficient and much more permanent. Launching contamination torpedoes, the weapons officer announced. The weapons that launched from the human ships were not designed to explode. They were designed to spread. Each torpedo contained billions of microscopic machines programmed with one simple task: make the consumed matter toxic to swarm biology. Torpedoes have reached the intake systems, Lieutenant Nam reported. Contamination is spreading through the processing network. On the tactical display, Cho watched red dots spread through the swarm facility like an infection. The microscopic machines were mixing with the planet's matter as it was consumed, turning the swarm's own food into poison. Swarm ships are still not aware of our presence, the sensor officer reported. Good, Cho said. Phase 2. Contact Colonel Yoon. A new face appeared on the communication screen. Colonel Yoon Jaemin was aboard a smaller ship designed for boarding actions. His team of Marines wore black armor that looked more like insect shells than traditional military equipment. We are ready for insertion, Captain, Colonel Yoon reported. Go, Cho ordered. Cho watched as Colonel Yoon's ship moved toward one of the swarm vessels. The boarding operation would have been impossible for the other galactic races to understand. Instead of fighting their way onto the enemy ship, the human Marines would sneak aboard and plant devices throughout the vessel's systems. Colonel Yoon's team is aboard the target, Lieutenant Nam reported. No resistance encountered. That was the strangest part about fighting the swarm. They had no security in the way other species understood it. They simply consumed everything they encountered, so they had never developed defenses against infiltration. Contamination devices are in place, came Colonel Yoon's voice over the radio. Beginning withdrawal. Cho turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet. Prepare for Phase 3. Across the system, other human ships were conducting similar operations. Not glorious battles between fleets, but surgical strikes against the swarm's ability to process consumed matter. Within hours, everything the swarm ate in this system would become poisonous to them. Captain, Lieutenant Nam said urgently, I am detecting Council observer ships approaching. Cho sighed. The Galactic Council had insisted on sending observers to watch the human operations. They wanted to see how humans fought, but they did not like what they saw. Put Counselor Veltar on screen, Cho ordered. The crystal being's face appeared, his blue features flashing with agitation. Captain Cho, Veltar said, my instruments show you have contaminated the entire processing facility. Millions of swarm organisms will die when they try to consume that matter. That is the plan, Cho replied. But they are living beings. How can you poison them without offering them a chance to surrender? Cho looked at the counselor for a long moment. Counselor, have you tried to communicate with the swarm? Well, no, but have they ever responded to any attempt at communication? Not exactly, but have they ever shown mercy to any world they have encountered? Veltar's crystal form dimmed. No. Then why should we show them mercy they would never show us? Cho asked. Every moment we spend being honorable, more worlds die. Every day we follow the old rules of war, the swarm grows stronger. But this is not how civilized beings fight. Counselor, Cho said quietly, would you rather be civilized or would you rather be alive? Before Veltar could answer, alarms began, sounding on the bridge. Captain, Lieutenant Nam called out. The contaminated matter is being processed. The swarm organisms are beginning to die. On the tactical display, the processing facility's energy signature began to fluctuate. The swarm ships that had been feeding on the planet's matter were now consuming poison instead of food. Sir, the weapons officer reported, several swarm ships are showing system failures. They are beginning to break apart. Cho watched as enemy vessels that had seemed invincible began to destroy themselves from within. The microscopic machines were spreading through their systems, turning their own biology against them. Phase 4, he ordered. All ships, begin. Withdrawal. Silent running. Captain, Veltar said from the communication screen. You are leaving. The battle is not finished. Yes, it is, Cho replied. We just won. But there are still swarm ships active in the system. Not for long. The contamination will spread through their entire network. Within 12 hours, every swarm organism in this system will be dead. Veltar's crystal form flashed with confusion. You did not even fight them directly. Counselor, Cho said, as his ship moved away from the battle zone. The greatest victory is the one where you never have to fight at all. As the human fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, the swarm ships in the Kepler 442 system began to fail one by one. The poison humans had introduced spread through their network like wildfire, turning their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. But the victory came at a price. The planet below was still being consumed, and everyone on it was already dead. The human strategy required sacrificing what was already lost to prevent future losses. Admiral Park, Cho reported over the long-range communication system. Operation Silent Hunter complete. Target system secured. Acknowledged, Admiral, Park replied. Return to base for debriefing and Captain. Yes, Admiral. Well done. You may have just saved the galaxy. Cho looked at the tactical display one more time. The swarm ships were dying, but there were still hundreds of other systems under threat. This was just the beginning. Set course. For Earth, he ordered, and prepare for the next operation. The war against the Void Swarm had truly begun, and for the first time since the enemy had appeared, someone was winning. The training facility on Luna Base was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Bae Jun-ho watched as beings from dozens of worlds struggled to learn concepts their cultures had never developed. Again, he called out to the mixed group of alien officers. You are not trying to defeat the enemy with superior force. You are trying to make the enemy defeat themselves. A draconic officer named Kess raised his clawed hand. This makes no sense, Commander. Where is the honor in tricking your opponent? Honor, Bae replied, is keeping your people alive. Honor is ending wars quickly so fewer beings die. Everything else is just pride. The draconic looked confused, but a crystalline Althari named Jex stepped forward. Commander Bae is correct. I have studied the human victories. In 3 weeks they have stopped the swarm in 12 systems. Our forces fought for months and only slowed them down. Because you fought the way you thought you should fight, Bae explained. Humans fight the way that works. He gestured to the holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the battle at Kepler 442, where Captain Cho's forces had poisoned an entire swarm processing facility. Watch closely, Bae said as the simulation played. Notice that the human ships never engage the enemy directly. They strike at the support systems, the logistics, the things the enemy needs to function. An officer from the gaseous nebulan species, whose name was unpronounceable but went by 7, floated closer to the display. This seems indirect. All the best tactics are indirect, Bae replied. If you attack where the enemy is strong, you waste lives and resources. If you attack where they are weak, you win quickly and efficiently. The training session was interrupted by an alert tone. The main screen switched to show Admiral Park Day-High from her command center on Earth. Commander Bae, Admiral Park said, we need you and your trainees for Operation Deep Strike. Can your people handle real combat operations? Bae looked at the group of alien officers. They had been training for only 2 weeks, but the galaxy was running out of time. More systems fell to the swarm every day. They will have to be ready, he replied. What is the mission? The Veil Nebula. Intelligence reports a massive swarm concentration building there. If they complete their construction, they will have enough ships to overwhelm any defense. The display changed to show a map of the nebula. It was a huge cloud of gas and dust with dozens of star systems hidden inside. Perfect cover for the swarm to build a fleet in secret. Sir, said Jex, the Althari officer, my people know the Veil Nebula well. We can provide navigation data, and my ships can move through gas clouds without detection, added 7, the Nebulan. Bae nodded. This was exactly what human doctrine called for, using each species' strengths in coordination, rather than having them all fight the same way. Admiral, he said to the screen, we can coordinate a multi-species operation. Each race contributes what they do best. Approved, Admiral Park replied. You have command of the joint force. Make it work. 6 hours later, Bay stood on the bridge of a ship unlike any the galaxy had seen before. It was not built by humans, Althari, Nebulans, or Draconics. It was built by all of them working together, each contributing their best technology. Status. Report, he called out. Althari navigation systems online, reported Jex from the sensor station. We can navigate through the nebula without being detected. Nebulan stealth field active, added 7 from the engineering console. We appear to be just another gas cloud to their sensors. Draconic weapon systems charged, reported Kess from the weapons station, though he still looked uncomfortable with the tactics they were about to use. Human coordination systems linking all ships, reported Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin, who was serving as Bay's second-in-command. All vessels in the strike force are now operating as a single unit. This was the breakthrough that had taken months to achieve. The galactic races had always fought as separate forces that happened to be on the same side. Now they were fighting as a single organism, each part contributing to the whole. Take us in, Bay ordered. The joint fleet moved into the Veil Nebula, like a school of fish, each ship aware of where all the others were without having to communicate. The Althari provided navigation through the dangerous gas clouds. The Nebulans made the entire fleet invisible to sensors. The Draconics contributed their powerful weapons. The humans provided the coordination that made it all work. Swarm construction. Facility detected, Jex reported. It is much larger than we expected. The tactical display showed a structure the size of a small moon. Around it, thousands of swarm ships were being constructed from matter consumed from nearby worlds. How many ships are they building? Bay asked. Computer estimates over 50,000 vessels, 7 replied. If completed, this fleet could consume the entire inner galaxy. Bay studied the display. A traditional military response would be to attack with everything they had, hoping to destroy the facility before the swarm could respond. But human doctrine suggested a different approach. Lieutenant Kim, he said, what do you see when you look at that construction facility? A single point of failure, she replied immediately. If the facility stops working, all those ships become useless metal. Exactly. We do not need to destroy 50,000 ships. We only need to stop one facility. But how? Asked Kess. The facility is protected by thousands of swarm vessels. We do not go through the protection, Bay explained. We go around it. He turned to 7. Can your people's gas form technology be adapted to infiltrate the facility itself? Theoretically, 7 replied, but we would need a distraction to cover the infiltration. Jex, Bay said to the Althari, can your people's knowledge of the nebula help us create that distraction? The crystalline being's form brightened with understanding. We can trigger a gas cascade reaction. It will look like a natural phenomenon, but it will disable their sensors for several minutes. And during those minutes, added Kess, finally, understanding the plan, we strike at the facility's power core. Now you are thinking like humans, Bay said with satisfaction. The operation that followed was nothing like the traditional space battles the galaxy was used to. Instead of ships firing at each other across vast distances, it was a carefully coordinated dance where each species contributed their unique abilities. The Althari triggered gas reactions that blinded swarm sensors. The Nebulans infiltrated the Yanda construction facility while it was blind. The Draconics provided covering fire when the swarm tried to respond. The humans coordinated everything, making sure each action supported all the others. Nebulan infiltration team is inside the facility, 7 reported. We are locating the primary power systems. Draconic squadrons are engaging swarm response. Forces, Kess added. We are drawing their attention away from the facility. Althari sensors show the facility's defenses are weakening, Jex reported. Execute final phase, Bay ordered. What happened next was perfectly coordinated destruction. The Nebulan infiltrators introduced human-designed viruses into the facility's power systems. The Althari used their knowledge of physics to cause cascade failures in the structure's support systems. The Draconics targeted specific weak points that human analysis had identified. Facility power core is overloading, 7 announced. Estimate, 30 seconds until total failure. All ships withdraw immediately, Bay ordered. The joint fleet pulled back from the construction facility just as it began to collapse. The massive structure folded in on itself like a house of cards, taking thousands of half-built swarm ships with it. Mission accomplished, Lieutenant Kim reported. Threat eliminated. Bay looked around the bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens. A few weeks ago, these beings had been arguing about honor and tradition. Now they were working together like parts of the same machine. Admiral Park, he reported over the communication system. Operation Deep Strike successful. Swarm construction facility destroyed. Outstanding work, Commander, Admiral Park replied. How did the joint crew perform? Bay looked at his alien colleagues. Jex was already analyzing sensor data for the next mission. Seven was coordinating with Nebulan ships throughout the fleet. Even Kess looked satisfied with their victory, despite having to abandon traditional draconic combat methods. They performed like humans, Admiral, Bay said. They fought to win. Excellent. Return to base for debriefing and prepare for the next operation. The swarm is regrouping in the outer rim, and we need every ship we can get. As the joint fleet left the Veil Nebula, Bay reflected on what they had accomplished. They had not just destroyed an enemy facility. They had proven that the galaxy's races could fight together as one force, using human tactics adapted to alien abilities. The swarm was still dangerous, but for the first time since the war began, the galaxy was fighting back effectively, and they were winning. General Oh Kyung-soo stood in the command center of the deepest space station humanity had ever built. Around him, officers from dozens of worlds worked together at control consoles, their different shapes and sizes no longer seeming strange, after months of joint operations. Final status report, he called out. All fleets are in position, reported Admiral Kwon Min Kyung from her flagship. 2,000 ships from 50 different worlds, all using integrated human tactical systems. Doctor Jung, is the weapon ready? Oh asked. Dr. Jung Ye-jin looked up from her research station. She was younger than most of the other officers, barely 30 years old. But she had developed the most important weapon in the galaxy's history. Not a bomb or a laser, but something much more dangerous to the Void Swarm. The conceptual virus is loaded and ready for deployment, she reported. Captain Nam's ship has been equipped with the necessary delivery systems. O turned to the main display, which showed the heart of Swarm territory. After months of fighting, the enemy had been pushed back to their original invasion point at the galaxy's edge. But they were not defeated. Instead, they had gathered into one massive concentration of ships and processing facilities. Intelligence estimates? O asked. Over 1 million swarm vessels, reported Lieutenant Park from the analysis station. They have consumed matter from 17 star systems to build this fleet. The numbers were staggering. Even with all the victories of the past months, the combined galactic fleet was outnumbered 50-1. In traditional combat, they would be completely destroyed. But this would not be traditional combat. Captain Nam, O said into his communication system, you are authorized to begin the final approach. The main screen switched to show Captain Nam Tae-woo on the bridge of a small, fast ship built specifically for this mission. Behind him, his crew of humans and aliens worked quietly at their stations. Understood, General, Captain Nam replied. Beginning penetration of swarm territory. O watched as the tiny ship began its journey toward the enemy's core network. It was not alone. Hundreds of other ships were conducting similar missions throughout swarm space. But Nam's ship carried the most important cargo. Sir, Lieutenant Park reported, long-range sensors show swarm forces beginning to respond. They are sending intercept squadrons. How many? O asked. Several thousand ships moving to block our approach routes. O nodded. This was expected. The swarm had learned to recognize human tactics over the months of fighting. They knew humans preferred stealth and misdirection to direct combat. But they did not know about the conceptual virus. Dr. Jung, O said, explain to the council observers what we are about to do. Dr. Jung turned to face the communication screens that showed council leaders from across the galaxy. Councillor Veltar of the Althari, Elder Korth of the Draconics, High Speaker Naran of the Collectorate and dozens of others watched nervously. Honored counselors, Dr. Jung began, the Void Swarm's greatest strength has always been its ability to learn and adapt. Every time we use a weapon against them, they develop countermeasures. Every time we try a new strategy, they find ways to defeat it. We know this, Beltar said impatiently. It is why they have been so difficult to stop. But we have discovered something important, Dr. Jung continued. Their learning system has a critical flaw. They cannot distinguish between useful information and harmful information. They absorb everything they encounter and try to adapt to it. What does that mean? Asked Elder Korth. It means, Dr. Jung said with a slight smile, that we can teach them something that will destroy them. The main display changed to show complex diagrams and equations. Most of the alien observers could not understand the details, but the implications were clear. We have created what we call a conceptual virus, Dr. Jung explained. It is a logical paradox disguised as tactical information. When the swarm's learning system tries to process it, the paradox will cause their adaptation algorithms to enter an infinite loop. What kind of paradox? Asked High Speaker Naran. Imagine a strategy that can only be defeated by adapting to it, but adapting to it makes it impossible to defeat, Dr. Jung replied. The swarm's intelligence will try to solve this problem forever, using more and more processing power until their entire network shuts down. And you can deliver this virus to their core intelligence? Counselor Veltar asked. That is Captain Nam's mission, General O replied. His ship will penetrate to the heart of their network and upload the virus directly into their central processing systems. On the screen, Captain Nam's ship was approaching the massive swarm concentration. Enemy vessels moved to intercept, but the human ship was too small and fast to catch easily. Swarm intercept forces are closing, reported Captain Nam. Beginning evasive maneuvers. O watched as the tiny ship danced between enemy vessels using every trick human engineers had developed. Stealth fields made it nearly invisible. Misdirection systems created false sensor readings. Speed and agility kept it ahead of enemy weapons. Sir, reported Admiral Kwan from her flagship, should we move the main fleet to support Captain Nam? Negative, O replied. This mission succeeds or fails based on stealth, not firepower. Around the galaxy, other human forces were conducting their own operations. Some were diversions meant to draw swarm attention away from Nam's ship. Others were backup missions in case the main assault failed. But everyone knew that Captain Nam carried their best hope for victory. I am approaching the core network, Captain Nam reported. Beginning final approach. The tension in the command center was unbearable. Thousands of ships and millions of lives depended on one small vessel reaching its target. Swarm defenses are intensifying, Nam reported. They know something important is happening. Can you get through? O asked. We will get through, Nam replied with quiet confidence. One way or another. O understood what that meant. Nam and his crew were prepared to die to deliver the weapon. It was the kind of sacrifice that human military doctrine sometimes required, the few dying so the many could live. Contact with the core network established, Dr. Jung reported from her station. Beginning virus upload. The main display showed data streams flowing from Nam's ship into the massive swarm network. The conceptual virus was small, just a few lines of code disguised as tactical information. But those few lines would change everything. Upload complete, Dr. Jung announced. The virus is now active in their core intelligence systems. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The swarm ships continued their approach toward Nam's vessel. Enemy forces throughout the galaxy continued their operations. Then the first signs appeared. Sir, Lieutenant Park reported, we are detecting anomalies in swarm formations. Their coordination patterns are becoming erratic. On the tactical display, O could see swarm ships beginning to move in strange ways. Some stopped completely, others began flying in circles. A few actually collided with each other. The virus is spreading through their network, Dr. Jung explained. Their learning system is trying to process the paradox and share the results. with other units. Every time they share it, the problem gets worse. How long until complete system failure? O asked. Based on their network topology, approximately 4 hours, Dr. Young replied. 4 hours. After months of warfare, the fate of the galaxy would be decided in 4 hours. All units, O broadcast to the entire galactic fleet, maintain current positions and observe. Do not engage swarm forces unless directly threatened. Across the galaxy, military commanders watched in amazement as the most feared enemy in their history began to destroy itself. Swarm ships shut down their systems one by one as the paradox spread through their networks. Processing facilities stopped functioning as their control systems became locked in infinite loops. General, reported Admiral Kwan, swarm forces in my sector have gone completely inactive. They are not responding to any stimuli. Same report from all sectors, added Lieutenant Park. The entire swarm network appears to be paralyzed. Ambassador Wu Jin, who had been quietly observing from the diplomatic section of the command center, stepped forward. Counselors, he said to the communication screens, the threat is over. The void swarm has been defeated. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Beings who had been preparing for extinction just hours before now danced and sang in dozens of languages. The impossible had happened. The unstoppable enemy had been stopped. But Wu Jin's expression remained serious. The war is over, he said, to the assembled council leaders, but the lesson must not be forgotten. We won because we were willing to fight in ways our enemy could not understand or adapt to. We won because we worked together as one people instead of many separate races. Counselor Veltar's crystal form flickered with understanding. You mean that we must remain united even in peace? I mean, Wu Jin replied, that we must remain prepared. The galaxy is vast and we do not know what other threats might exist beyond our borders. We have learned to fight together. Now we must learn to stay together. Elder Korth leaned forward. Are you saying there might be other enemies like the Void Swarm? I am saying, Wu Jin answered, that the price of peace is eternal vigilance. We must be ready to defend our civilization against any threat, no matter how impossible it might seem.